The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.
Welcome back to Power Hour. It is such a pleasure to have you join us today. You could be anywhere, but you want to know the truth. You want to know what's going on in the world, in the United States. Well, we have Mike Zullo joining us today, and I'm really pleased to have him rejoin us at the Power Hour. Retired detective, volunteer for the Maricopa County Sheriff Posse. He is the lead detective on that case. And we'll talk about Sheriff Arpaio and his creation of this case. But I had the pleasure of seeing him at the recent CSPOA meeting, the Constitutional Sheriffs and Police Officers Association meeting with Sheriff Mack. I say I had the pleasure of seeing him. I didn't get to talk to him. He was always surrounded by so many people, which tells you of the popularity of the issue that he is pursuing and the investigation that he is doing. So I thank you very much for joining us, Mike Zullo, on the Power Hour today.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you again.
You had so many people, so many sheriffs, so many police officers surrounding you. You probably, it was encouraging you to find out how much support there is for this investigation.
It was really encouraging. There were a lot of police officers there that didn't really follow this issue, actually wrote it off, as Sheriff Arpaio did in the very beginning, thinking that there really wasn't going to be anything to this. And after they saw a presentation for about an hour and a half of evidence that we have, they actually came up to me saying, I didn't believe it, but I do now, and I'm going to follow it, and I'm going to support it. So that was encouraging, because when you can, deliver this kind of information to your peers and have it peer-reviewed and come out with that kind of positive reinforcement, I know we have it. We know it's fake, and soon the world will know it's fake.
And, of course, what we're talking about, I want you to talk about what this cold case posse investigation is all about, surrounding, of course, the birth certificate of Obama, which involves probably a lot more than that, but that was your focus, I know, at the meeting. And it was great. It's great knowing that many sheriffs and police officers got involved and are now supporting you. I know there was a closed-door meeting that I accidentally went in or tried to get into, but there's a guy with a gun at the door that was not all that, you couldn't get in the meeting unless you were a person that was called law enforcement. I know you can't tell us about that meeting, but I just want the people to know that you did have a meeting that was closed door with law enforcement only.
We did. I gave two presentations. I gave one very early on in the morning, which I believe is on YouTube as we speak, but then we did give a closed door to law enforcement, attorneys, or elected officials, governmental officials. And like you said, that was something that you just couldn't get into. We didn't allow the media to partake of that because we were showing evidence that we have never released publicly. And we did this because we wanted to gauge the strength and weight of what we were presenting to our own peers. Much like in medicine, they do what's called peer review. You take your data and you let your peers review it. Well, that's what we wanted to do. That meeting was scheduled to go for an hour, 1 hour. It ended up going for about 4.5 hours.
Wow.
People just stayed there for 4.5 hours. And I don't have to tell you, you're in this, talk business. To keep people engaged like that, you have to have some compelling stuff.
Absolutely. And that's why accidentally I was looking for you and wanted to talk to you before the meeting was over, and I said, where was he? And they said he's in that room down there, so I thought the meeting was over, but boy, was I surprised to see a man with a gun at the door saying, you can't go in there. And, who would I tell after all, Mike? My goodness, you could share that information with me. Anyway,
okay.
Anyway, from this meeting, you've gotten support, I know, from sheriffs around the country. You made an offer. I know this much. You did make an offer that you would come and talk to each sheriff or police officer or police chief personally and engage them to be involved in this. Have you had any people take you up on that?
No, I haven't. I don't think I'm going to have to. I said it that way just to put it out there on the line that if you doubted anything that you saw here, you could call me up and I would come out and see you personally. But what we were trying to do is garner law enforcement support because Sheriff Arpaio wants to take this matter to Congress. He wants Congress to look at this. And we think Congress needs to look at this. Not that this rises to the level of any of the other atrocities that we are now putting before Congress, but we need Congress to take a look at this. Congress is the people that can get to the bottom line of this fraudulent document quicker than any other process.
Well, I'd like to believe that the congressional system works, that they are there for us, and that 2 senators from every state care about the people, but unfortunately it's getting a little bit, I'm getting a little bit jaundiced on that issue, but that is the place that it needs to go. Do you know of any congressional support at this point?
I do. We have Congressman Steve Stockman from Texas who has expressed interest, and I am trying to schedule a meeting with him before they go on summer recess, which I believe is sometime in August, and I think that meeting will happen. He wants to be fully debriefed on everything that we have to date. I wasn't going to say anything, but I'm actually in Washington as we speak. We have other contacts now, other VIPs that want to hear some information, and I'm here to deliver that.
Interesting. Well, that is breaking news that you are in Washington right now. Steve Stockman, oh my gosh. I mean, I consider that such an honor to actually have the opportunity to talk to that man. The guy is the real deal. If there is anybody that's the real deal in Washington, I believe he is.
I agree with you, and I think Steve is going to really, really try to do something with this. I don't want to speak prematurely, but out of the host of politicians that I have encountered, I agree with you. He is the real deal. He's got the fortitude to do it, and he's got the insight. He just doesn't play around. It's either black or white. What is it? What's it going to be? And let's get to the bottom of it. That's the way that guy runs.
Yes, yes. All right, let's go back to the issue. The issue at hand is the birth certificate. Now, everything seems to be focused on that. And I would have to ask you, why is it the birth certificate when we know his Social Security number is bad, or we've been told it's bad, when his draft information, his history, his CV, all of those things are a problem, but you're focusing just on the birth certificate. And why is that?
Well, the birth certificate was really the issue that was presented to us. And what people have to understand is we can't just go around as a law enforcement organization and investigate anything that we want. We have to have a jurisdictional reason to investigate something. In other words, some crime or offense has to have happened in our county, in Arizona, Maricopa County. And the birth certificate was offered by the president as proof positive of the birth event that he claims took place in Hawaii, and it was presented over the airwaves in a press conference and released on the internet. And that was right before the 2012 election cycle. We had a group of citizens, a Tea Party, surprise Tea Party, came to the sheriff with a petition of 250 signers saying that we think there's something wrong with this and our voting rights are going to be infringed. Sheriff Arpaio in the beginning didn't think there was much to this, and myself in the beginning. I didn't really know anything about this until the sheriff called me and asked me if we would take a look at this. And I wholeheartedly expected to clear this document in about 48 hours. I didn't think there was going to be anything here. And as fate would have it, we're now 21 months into a very long, tedious investigational process, gathering the evidence that we believe we need to put forth to prove the document to be a forgery. And on top of that, we were successful in getting a court-certified document examiner, somebody who testifies as an expert in court, to review the document, review our methodology, and come to his own independent conclusion that the document is a 100% forgery. So now I have a court-certified forensic document examiner concurring with us that the document has been manipulated, it's been fabricated, and it is in fact a forgery.
You know, the question that a lot of us have, and anybody would come to this understanding, or this, I don't know, would come to this point that, wait a minute, if it's that obvious that it is a fraud, how are they able to keep it from the people? How are they able to continue this hoax on the American public when we don't really know who Obama is? We don't really know I don't know that he was a constitutional lawyer. I don't know any of those things because it does not appear that there's background to support him. How can they keep this hoax going, and who keeps the hoax going? Well,
they keep the hoax going in a number of ways. There seems to be some kind of agreement between between Republicans and Democrats not to look into this issue. We know that the media has gone silent on this issue. They went silent on it 24 hours after the birth certificate was released to the public. Then we know that the opposition, the loyal opposition through the media, should be the people vetting the President of the United States.
Yes.
And they haven't done their job. So we believe now it is in the position for Congress, as the Constitution calls for, it's in the position of Congress to do the vetting now of this individual. Even though it's almost 2 terms later, 2.5 terms later, we don't believe that the American people should be excluded from the truth. They have a right to know who this man is. And just like you said, Joyce, just earlier, he was never a constitutional professor. I mean, they just exaggerated every tale about this individual. We go back and try to look into his background, we can't get too far. The trail goes cold. There's gaps in the background. We can't get enough information on him to satisfy one of the most basic background investigations. I mean, this is the sitting president of the United States, and the voting public has a right to know who the guy is. We don't have any evidence that suggests that he was in Hawaii before the age of 5 years old. We don't have any evidence that says he was born in Hawaii. And I'll make it even worse. If we are right, which I do believe we are, but you always preface it because someone else is going to have to adjudicate this. If we are correct in that document, that birth certificate PDF file is fraudulent, he has offered no proof to his own birth narrative. And that means there is no evidence that the people he purports to even be his parents are in fact his parents. We don't have any real evidence of that either.
We don't have evidence of anything. The guy could be an alien for all we know. We'll be back after this. No, I'm just kidding. We'll be back after this 4-minute break. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the Power Hour. Thank you for joining us. It's all about the truth, and we search for it at the Power Hour. We may not like it, but we search for it. And I spent 13 years as a Ketom whistleblower, and I will tell you, ladies and gentlemen, when you paid the price like that, nobody can really get to you. I mean, 13 years of abuse that I took because I was right, if you will. And you have to pursue when you're right. You have to do that. You have to. It's not a choice, I think, for Mike Zullo and for Sheriff Arpaio. I don't think it's a choice any longer. Once you know something is really, really wrong, you want to do that for the sake of the issue and for the people that it affects. You know, we're talking to Mike Zullo, who is the head of the cold case posse for Sheriff Arpaio's office and the investigation into the birth certificate. There's so much more than just the birth certificate. Now, we all know, we take your position. We know it's a fraud. You know, and but you know, the question is there's more than one document examiner in this country. There's lots of them, and they can all see the very same thing that you're seeing. And so it's a matter of making it visible enough to where people will come forward and do the Me Too thing. Just like now, all the pilots have come forward regarding 9/11 and saying, Me Too, there's no way it could have happened the way they said it happened. That's another whole story. But the background of Obama is so created and orchestrated. The very fact that he and his wife arbitrarily just gave back their law bar card just makes no sense to me whatsoever. Have you dealt with that issue?
You know, we did, and we ran into roadblocks. You cannot get the investigational files from the Illinois State Bar trying to look into that matter, but nobody does that. Nobody would go through that whole educational process and then surrender their bar license for no apparent reason. And I would suspect that Obama, in his case, he surrendered that because there was going to be some misrepresentations made on his application. Because we know, for one, it does ask you a question if you had ever used another name or an alias. Now, this is the only sitting American president that's got 4 aliases. I mean, this guy's got 4 AKAs that he can go by.
The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.